You're listening to Redesigning Reality with Dylan Charles and Jeff Anthony.
Rolling?
Rolling.
Finally rolling. There's a lot of buttons you got to push to get everything rolling at the same time here, you know?
Point and click, buddy.
Point and click. Pointing and clicking our way to success. This is Dylan Charles. I'm here with Jeff Anthony. What's up, Jeff?
Not much. It was my birthday yesterday. It was really fun. Hanging out with the family.
Birthday, huh? Happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, you know how like Facebook has... It tells you when everybody's birthday is. You know, it tells you whose birthday it is that day. I found that I like that feature. I like to just send a note to people that I've met once or twice. You know, like I tend to keep my Facebook profile down to people I actually know or people that I work with on some level. And it's nice to like have that in front of, like have that there to send these people nice notes and be like, "Yo, man, happy birthday."
Yeah,
just thinking about
it is
you.
Cool. It's cool hearing from people that you haven't seen in a long time too, that you actually are friends with, you know? So like, do you remember Manny? Did you work with Manny, the artist? Yeah, he's a really cool guy. He lives in Wyoming or something, and he's an amazing artist. He knows, you're all into that MMA stuff. He's friends with, Ronda Rousey. Is that her name?
Rousey.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's friends with her. And, he was at her training thing, like doing all these sketches of her and stuff and putting them up on Facebook for like promotion and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden he posts this picture of him and he's sitting in the center and on his right is Ronda Rousey's trainer and on his left is Mike Tyson, dude. And I wrote him, I was like, "Oh, dude, you suck. I love Mike Tyson." That was like, that's the coolest picture ever. And he was like, "Yeah, bro, it's really cool." So anyway, he runs in some circle. Like he knew Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, and because he's an amazing artist, he's done a lot of really cool stuff. And so it's kind of weird, like, you know, these people for like 20 years, and they were, you know, just some young artist dude, and then their careers blow up, and they meet all these famous people, and you're like, this is so cool that I know this guy that, you know, runs in these circles. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's totally interesting. One of my good friends, her name's Debbie Purcell. You can look her up on YouTube, but she was, I don't know the best way to describe it, like maybe like the first recognized like female MMA like champion star. She's like credited with bringing, you know, popularizing MMA for women, basically. So, you know, in the last like 10 years, she was like the dominant world female MMA fighter. Kick-ass girl. She's super cool too. She's got a picture. Yeah. I went and visited her in LA and we drank some ayahuasca together. That's another story. But she has a picture of herself with Mike Tyson too. Iron Mike Tyson, man. She says he's a good dude. Sounds like a nice guy.
Yeah, Manny said the same thing. He said he was super cool as ice and like just super humble and like totally down to earth. Just a really cool guy. Fun to hang out with.
Well, that's cool. That's why I really like martial arts. You know, I do Kung Fu. Have done that for many, many years. But now these days I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the thing about martial arts is it chills you out. You know, like it burns through all of that anxiety. It burns through all that fear. So when you get out into the real world, like you're calm. I went rolling yesterday, which is what we call, you know, practicing Jiu-Jitsu. And you know, when I got home, one of the girls posted something on Facebook about how, like, you know, holiday stress and this and that. It's no big deal once you go rolling for a couple hours. Like, and it's true. It's true, man. You go do that for an hour or two or three times a week. You can't, everything else is easy. It's so hard. It's so hard.
I think you become humble, too, because one of my favorite quotes by Mike Tyson is from back when he was boxing, you know, and all these guys would be all pumped up and like, "Oh, I'm going to take him down. I'm going to kick his ass and blah, blah, blah. Mike Tyson's not that tough." And he's like, "Yeah, everybody's a badass until you get punched in the face." You know, and I love that quote because it's so true, man. Everybody's tough until they get cracked off in the nose. And then all of a sudden they start renegotiating in their mind if this was such a good idea. So it's a humbling sport for sure, both jiu-jitsu and boxing, you know?
Yeah, and you another cool thing. The Chihuahua's going off. Another cool thing about it is like you go into a kung fu school or self-defense school or Krav Maga or, you know, jiu-jitsu or whatever, and then you go out into the world and you look around and you're like, wait a minute. a lot of these people here are extremely skilled at defending themselves and hurting people. That's pretty humbling as well, right? So you tend to get smarter. You tend to get smarter about, being out in public.
Right. And it's just like the thing we've talked about before with, you never know what somebody's going through as far as challenges in their life. You never know what kind of martial arts training a lot of these people have. So, and looking at you, Dylan, walking down the street, you wouldn't think, oh, yeah, that guy's probably like a kung fu master and jiu-jitsu, he could take me down, because you just look like a regular dude, walking down the street with your kids. But, so it's pretty it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective, I guess, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I saw this, not to sound like a Facebook nerd here today, because, if you can get over the spying and the creepiness of Facebook and stuff, it's pretty cool to be able to communicate with people in that way. There was a meme the other day that one of my friends put up, and it's like this yin yang symbol. It's like, rule for life or whatever. On one side it says harm no one, and on the other side it says take no shit, right? Pretty simple philosophy, and it's easier to walk like that through the earth when you have self-mastery, right? When you mastered yourself, because like kung fu is so different than Brazilian jiu-jitsu in so many ways. One way that it's different is that it's a lot less effective at actual real self-defense, like street self-defense and surviving like an attacker situation. Jiu-jitsu is far more advanced for that. But when you go through like a program and you apply yourself in a situation, in a sport or something like that, where it's your challenge, your fear is challenged, your fear is constantly being tested, and you're constantly having to go, okay, I'm going to overcome my fear now again today. Oh, I'm going to overcome my fear now again. Oh, that guy did just bust me in the face. All right, well, my choice is to quit or overcome that fear. And then also like the discipline involved with the continued practice of training. Okay, I'm at this level now. I need to keep it up to get to this level. I need to keep it up to get to this level. And so the self-mastery that comes in martial arts, whether it be like Kung Fu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or even the softer things like Tai Chi and even Aikido, like the power they have for self-mastery is unparalleled, I think,
Absolutely. It reminds me, too, of a great book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Dan Millman.
Yeah.
Great book. And also great, it's a great kind of outlook and mantra on life. Like, hey, you can walk through life as a warrior, but you can be peaceful to people. But at the same time, it's like the thing you were take no shit off of people. Tell people your truth, and don't let people walk all over you. I think that's a big issue that we've had in society, and it's something that's taken a turn right now with all these, the hashtag Me Too thing, all that movement and all that stuff that's going on. Speaking of social media, where people are coming out and they've had enough, and they're saying, "Hey, look, no more." And it's not just, it's interesting. It's not just men, preying on women. It's women preying on women and men preying on men. And all this stuff is coming out into like the public view. And it's really interesting how social media has kind of pulled back the veil on so many issues in our world, and especially in politics and power positions. And then right on cue, we're going to take net neutrality away because we got to start controlling what people are watching and putting out there because we're all going to get found out. It's kind of...
net neutrality has been on the table for a long time, and it keeps coming up. And I've always just honestly, like reflecting on my experience with participating in politics and, doing campaigns and stuff and helping out. Like, I just feel like any power grab that they have that's in the works is pretty much inevitable, right? I don't know how hopeless that sounds. I think it really means is like you take that pressure and then you apply yourself into other areas of life and other, places in the world where you can do good and, influence things, which is really what this podcast is kind of about. But like these fuckers, they're going to take net neutrality. They're going to, they're going to do whatever. They're either going to do it as net neutrality or they're going to write it in on, some byline and some stupid, like a road bill or whatever, right? And then make sure that nobody gets to read it first. I mean, that's just how they operate. It's a den of thieves and crooks and criminals. And so you really have to, anything like net neutrality, if there's an issue that really pushes your buttons and it gets you fired up politically, and it gets you interested in what's going on, and, you know, signing the petitions and doing all that stuff. Well, there's an opportunity for you to get involved and figure out how the system really works. If you really find something that you're passionate about, that the system seems to have its fingers on the button, you can get in there and find out, work on that issue, and you'll find out how the system really works. It doesn't work the way that you think it does. It's not necessarily some like one guy behind the curtain with an evil agenda. No, man, it's not. It doesn't work like that. Like every part of the political system is broken down into like committees and meetings, and you know, at the state level, there's the group that congregate at the state level. Then there's the group that congregate at the national level, or the municipal level, or even, you know, the county level, right? So you're dealing with groups of people, and ultimately it will boil down to people in your community in some regard. But what you find out is that like the people who want to take, that are takers, they're going to take, right? You know, and
always do.
And so in that, it's kind of like you have to be. I look at it more as being a watcher, right? You know, being a watcher,
observer,
and not necessarily like a watcher, like I'm watching you, like they know, and that's what the alternative media really is about, is letting these people know that they are being watched, people are paying attention, right? You know, but it's so easy to get caught up in trying to, you know, jump on an issue like net neutrality. Oh, I'm gonna fix, or I'm gonna stop this, you know. And there's people that'll argue with me all day long and say I'm totally wrong, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, like, the system works for the system, right? So whatever whatever it needs to do to consolidate control and power, and, you know, apply force against whoever, like, it's gonna do, you know. And so, once again, yin yang, take no, you know, do no harm, take no shit. You know, if this arena is so crooked and so corrupt, then maybe you'd be more effective. Maybe you'll have a bigger impact by playing in a different arena where you can actually affect things, man.
That's funny, because we were last night talking about all this stuff, my wife and I, you know, as we were falling asleep and laying in bed, and I was saying how, you know, it's people are much more aware now, you know, about, you know, the IMF and the World Bank and who's controlling the economies, and how there's so many, you know, different hands in the cookie jar of these people that want to rule the world, and they think that they're okay. We have control because we have all these people, our little minions, and they all go to work and have these jobs and do these things, and we're the haves and they're the have-nots, and that's the way we want it. And the funny thing is inside of that, you can redesign your reality, and you can create your own world, and you can find that I love my life. I don't need to have $1 trillion or $1 billion or $1 million to have an awesome life, and I have no aspiration of having dominance or control over massive groups of people and making policy that people have to follow based on the things that I want so that I can get more. And I find that being that type of person, and being more of a contributor, and being more of a lover of society and of people, and accepting my life for what it is and the blessings that I have in it, instead of always, you know, trying to dip in the pond of the bigger, better, or the greater thing, you know, and catch the bigger fish and have the bigger car and all that mess. It's very rewarding if you can shift your mindset and stop watching all the shit on TV and all the stupid, overly ridiculous lifestyles that people flaunt on celebrity television to try to make people feel like they're unsuccessful if they're not living this way. That's not reality, you know. And if you can get into reality and you can accept where you are, you know, there's that saying, stay in your lane. But it's absolutely true. If you stay in your lane and you can begin to love this life instead of wishing you had a life over there or a life over here that was better. It's ridiculous, you know. It's
clever how they use the double speak, you know, the new think, calling it reality shows when it's anything but reality.
Oh, it's so funny. That's reality television, the most falsified, fake thing you'll ever watch in your life.
Well, I mean, like, it's interesting too, because like the media is very, very important to political control, to social power. It's a very important part of the like control structure that allows like the richest people to keep consuming up, you know, and like elevating their wealth. And so to use, it's powerful because it can warp people's reality at that very subtle, very like functional, foundational level. Like when I speak a word and I don't know what the word means anymore, or when I use the word in complete contrast to its actual original meaning, man, that warps the way that you view and create the world that you live in, right? You know, and furthermore, we were talking earlier about how some of these giant, like personalities, like Today Show personalities and stuff, are getting fired because it turns out they're all like psychopathic, power hungry, perverts and predators, right? Oh, big surprise there, right? And so, but they pay them so much, man. They pay these guys. Matt Lauer, I think, was, he's listed at like $25 million a year, and there's this old video clip from this guy William Cooper, this old like conspiracy theorist guy, wrote the book Behold a Pale Horse, and he talks about how important it is for these guys. That's why he talks about why pro athletes get so much money, because it's a very valuable position that they hold in the control structure, right? They have a lot of stake. These guys have a lot of like very important role in reshaping and reframing the world's. People's worlds and people's perceptions and realities for them. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to play a football player, $6 million, $20 million a year, if he's doing his job of keeping people totally distracted from, everyday life. First of all, distracted from their own families and what's in front of them, but then further, like distracted from the deeper issues, the deeper social issues or political issues that are going on. Like the whole thing that they've been able to do with the Colin Kaepernick protest. He was protesting one specific thing at one point, but now it's become twisted in this morass of just this convoluted, like nobody even knows why anybody's protesting anymore.
And Colin Kaepernick's not even in the league anymore and playing football. And it's funny because this movement that he started has grown bigger than him, right? And then I guess to make him relevant now.
My point is that it's the waters have been so muddied over that issue. I don't know.
Sure. And then to thrust him back into the importance of things, he's then now been chosen as GQ's Man of the Year, and I'm like, well, or Social Activist of the Year or whatever, and I'm like, well, wasn't that last year that he did? He's not even on television or in the league this year, but that goes back to the thing you were saying about distraction and making people important and putting them in front of people's faces in order to further distract them from the things they really should be thinking about and concentrating on as far as their children's education, what their children are consuming. And I'm talking about watching on television and listening to and also eating. But, it's become this like a smoke screen, excuse me, like a smoke screen where people are look at this thing over here, so that behind this, there's really all these other things going on. And we're going to slip this writer in, like you were talking about, and take away your internet rights and all these different things. And, on and on it goes with the TSA and all the things that they keep doing. And inside of all of that, my point is, man, I go to the airport, I fly places, I don't care. Like, dude, you want to pat me down? You want to go through my bag? I'm still going to go see my friends and family and have a good time. I'm still going to go to Costa Rica and visit my friends. I'm still traveling. I'm still doing what I want to do inside of this control system that it really, in a lot of ways, just doesn't seem to touch your life if you have the right attitude about it.
Well, I have a friend. He's a really brilliant guy. I won't say his name.
Are you talking? His name is Jeff Anthony.
Yeah, that's the one, Jeff Anthony. Well, he's a lot like you, man. A really interesting guy. But he likes to use the word wizard. Like this. He uses the word wizard to describe people, which is a lot like Jeff Anthony, because Jeff Anthony is the author of Cosmic Wizard. That's a good plug there, right? But he likes to,
good. I like that.
He likes to use the word wizard a lot, but what he's saying there is like the wizard. He's like, the wizard's everywhere. You could be a wizard. Come be a wizard. I'll teach you how to be a wizard. You're a wizard. I'm a wizard. And like what he really is saying is that like anybody can be a wizard, and what it means is like people have like woken up to who they are. They internally they've acknowledged the internal worlds. They've been through the cosmic side of themselves. And so, but they use that every day in a practical way to transmute all the confusion and chaos and the anger and the control nonsense and all of that stuff. They use that to transmute that every day, every moment of the day. You know, they're conscious of the stories that they're telling themselves, the stories that govern how they live and the decisions they make and the way they treat people and act around people and stuff. And so these are the people that are the wizards. You know, these are the ones that can go out and eat McDonald's. It won't affect their bodies the way it affects ordinary people. You know, they can transmute their emotions. They can turn the anger into love and the fear into love and on a dime, you know. And
which is true alchemy, and that's what that's what wizardry is all about. And I got to meet this guy because that's what my book. I mean, that's why I titled my book "Cosmic Wizard." It's realizing that you are magic, that you are magical, that you have this cosmic wizard living inside of you at all times, but you just have to tap into that, you know, and find your power. And it's so true. The daily bullshit just slides off. It does. It's like water off a duck's back or whatever. But it's so true. You can totally redesign your reality. It's so funny that keeps coming up. But it is funny. I mean, there's no better description for what you're doing. And it is true alchemy. It's where you're taking a situation and you're manipulating it to where something that we should share in this is that, you know, a lot of it has to do with your perception. A lot of people perceive things as good or bad. And I've gotten to the point where I try to eliminate that from my life because it just is. And all of a sudden something happens and you have a perception of good or bad. So then all of a sudden you realize that you have the control to direct where something's going to go. So in my personal situation, you know, hey, you have a incurable disease. Oh man, that's horrible. Well, is it? Yeah, there's a lot of negative outcome. There's a lot of things that are happening, but in so many ways, the doctors that I see when I do go to doctor visits are like, I don't know how you're doing the things you're doing. You shouldn't be able to walk for the last 15 years and you're still doing it. And that's the cosmic wizard. That's the alchemy. That's taking a situation that, yes, is difficult and yes, is detrimental, but making it something that was such a challenge that it became your greatest teacher and a giant victory for you in your life, you know?
So what is it that people have to go through to awaken to this side of themselves? I mean, it's part of all of us.
Well, I think everybody goes through the dark night of the soul. Everybody's dealing with something, you know, whatever it is, an eating disorder, a dysfunctional family, being broke, you know, unemployed, being homeless. We've heard all these stories of homeless people, especially here, that have turned their lives around and now own businesses and write books and are super successful in public speaking and different things. I think one of them, I can't remember his name, was in that movie The Secret, talking about how he lived on the streets for years. And now, you know, he's a multi-million selling, best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author. And it's I think what it is realizing that your greatest growth happens in the biggest struggle, and
right.
Taking that story and sharing it with others. There's something very powerful in that. It's a powerful position. And I'm not talking in the domineering type of power. I'm talking in the helpful, useful, charging other people's lives kind of power. And yeah, so many people try to avoid, we've talked about that before, the one pill solution and get on some psychotropic drug to try to avoid your problems. But in those problems are the solutions. And it sounds cliche and stupid when you're in that situation, because I've been there and had people say to me, you know, Jeff, as soon as you accept yourself for who you are, things are going to change for you. And you want to be like, yo, fuck you. You're not sitting here in my situation. So I understand. But the reason it becomes charging and powerful is because now, being on the other side, when people see me still with my challenges and then I'm sharing with them the way out of their challenge, they're like, damn, dude, I can't say fuck you to this guy. You don't know where I'm at, because he's telling me where I'm at because he's been there. And now he's trying to show me the way out. So I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and they should feel proud of the things they've been through, because it's going to help somebody else. You know, your story is my story kind of thing.
it seems like a big part of this story is, or a common part of the story, I know this applies to me, is going through that whole phase of depression, you know, trying to find out what the meaning of it all is, what's the point of it all. So I see people, myself included, going through these long periods of time where these ideas and these things slowly drag you down until you have no choice but to, you know, fight or flight, right? You know, to get through it or to give into it. But when you were talking, I was thinking about the experience of like, not psychotropic medicines, but psychedelic medicines like ayahuasca and iboga. Like they put you in these situations where you may be like meditating on the medicine and then be like slammed with a rush of information, a vision of information about your life or something that hasn't gone wrong in your life. And you have, at that moment, you're able to see things for what they are and see your way out of them and choose right then and there to heal, move on, expand, you know, beyond something. So it kind of happens in the day-to-day life, but it can also, these awakenings can happen like in a flash. You know, there's ways to, there's things that bring about experiences like this. I'm thinking of something else though, because have you ever heard of, I mean, of course you have, but you know, the idea of a moment of clarity?
Oh yeah, for sure. Of course.
I remember when I was suffering from like depression, anxiety, all this stuff many years back, and I was working all the time and trying to figure it out, and you know, was really trying to take good care of myself, but was still like on the brink. And then I pushed myself into a situation where I was really concentrating and focusing on meditation and self-care. Like every day I was doing this very specific meditation twice a day. And lots of journaling, introspection, really like just hanging on, trying to figure it out, like I said. And a whole bunch of things happened like in a series of like 3 days. Just this, bam, it was like a string of synchronicities. Just like I stumbled into a pool of synchronicities, right? But one of the things happened was I had a moment of clarity, right? I was driving to work one morning, like on a Saturday morning or something, driving into work. And as I was driving down the highway, all of a sudden, I was completely sober, you know, all of a sudden, all the cars on me were, you know, they were kind of moving at the same speed the cars were kind of going. Like time just kind of froze, and this time just kind of like didn't freeze, it just stopped. It just ended with all of these cars and vehicles moving around you. And my mind and my spirit like instantly went all the way back in time. It saw everything I had done, every decision I ever made, every experience I'd ever had in my life just instantly were revealed to me at the same time. Then it went back, every experience of my mother, every experience of my father, all their whole lives. Then it was my grandfathers and my grandmothers. I experienced their whole lives in an instant, like it all happened, boom, like that. So some kind of psychological trigger, something happened, and it opened up to that space that we were talking about before, you know, that kind of space that people see when in near-death experiences, where their consciousness is no longer... their body or their filter is no longer restricting their conscious awareness. Well, that can happen in the spatial sense, but also in the temporal sense. And so I had this moment I can only describe it as a moment of clarity. It was so profound, so life-changing. But it wasn't just a matter of a few seconds. I understood everything. I understood the whole purpose of my whole life and why I was there, and that it was as simple as I was there to be everything I'd ever done that had ever happened to me because I was supposed to be on the road driving to work with all these other cars going to me, because that was the very cutting edge moment of the human experience. I was on the very front, the very vanguard tip of the human experience. Everything my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, all my ancestors had done was all with the intent. All their struggles, all their loves, all their wins and their losses, and everything that they'd ever experienced was all to get me into this one moment, right? Man, it was so deep. I got to work later and a whole bunch of crazy other like synchronicities happened, but completely changed my understanding of life, man, totally. You ever had anything like that, man? Experienced anything like that?
I have, and when you were talking about your situation and your story there, and you've said story a few times too, which reminds me, it kind of kicked my memory off about story, right? And how people buy into a story, and to talk further about being the wizard or being, you know, writing your own mythology, right? Because wizards are in mythology and all this stuff. And, you know, you can write your own story. You can write the victim story, or you can write the hero story. And which one do you choose? And when you were talking about these moments of clarity, one of them, and you talked about ayahuasca, and it got me thinking about my ayahuasca experience that's in the book there that you just held up. And in my ayahuasca experience, you know, I kept receiving a message from Mother Ayahuasca telling me to let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. And I'm like, let go, like, let go of what? And I realized it was let go of your story, let go of your anger, let go of your belief that you're not good enough, let go of the belief that this thing happened to you because you weren't doing the right thing. Let go of thinking that you'll never be whole again. Let go. And it was so profound, just those two words, let go. And I talked about in that story how I kept seeing these like twisting ladders, and they were reaching down to me, and I was in this hole. And the funny thing was, when I finally started to let go, which was also a message to, hey, let go of this temporal space and time that you're trying so hard mentally to hold on to keep your shit together so you don't barf and shit yourself, you know, literally. Just let go and let it happen. And there's a bucket right there, man. Just let it go. And a lot of that happened too. But the point is, when I finally did let go and let the ayahuasca experience kind of rush over me like a tsunami, I realized that the thing that was reaching down in this hole, this ladder, was twisted, and that twisted ladder was my DNA, and it was my body trying to tell me and teach me something, right? And the inside of this this twisted story, this twisted DNA strand, that there was an exit, because I all of a sudden realized that twisted thing was a ladder, and I could climb out of that hole and become whole. It was really, I mean, dude, you want to talk about just a mind-blowing trip, and realizing that, like I said earlier, that all the people, the shamans that had told me, Jeff, when you accept yourself the way you are, you're going to see how powerful you will become. I realized they were right, because I wanted to push this story away, that I had this, you know, neurological disorder, but at the same time, that had become my story and my excuse and my reason that all these things weren't happening in my life that I wanted to have happen. And then once I grasped onto that DNA strand, which was a representative of me and my life, I got up out of that hole, you know, and I let go of that story that was no longer productive. And I started to write a completely different story, literally, that helped me and has been helping others. And it's been an amazing ride. And now all the things, talk about synchronicities and things unfolding and life unpacking itself right in front of you. You know, it's totally like the Indiana Jones scene where you're at the cliff and there's no bridge, and then you step off and all of a sudden you land on something, and then the camera angle shifts and you're like, oh man, you can see the whole bridge now. It's really cool how that can unfold when you let go of the old story. And I mean, we all have a story. You're going to write a new one, and that's creating your own mythology and being the cosmic wizard.
Yeah, letting go is such an important message. I know we talked about this before. I was talking about, you know, just how crazy the world is, and, you know, it's important to let go of your expectations. But in that context of rapid, you know, massive personal transformation, you know, an experience like you just described, that's a major shift. That's not a minor shift. That's not a thing that you have to monitor. It's like once that happens, it happens. I had the first time I drank ayahuasca during the 10 plus days I was in the jungle with these old shaman from Ecuador, and like after, like, I don't know, let me cut the story short, but big experience, like during one of the first ceremonies, life-changing. Same situation. I was forced with the recognition that I had to let go in order to, like, survive, in order to make it through the night or make it through whatever. And so it was this experience that I had created an identity for myself, you know, like a life around. I had created all these attachments to things, you know, whether it's my profession, my name, you know, everything, you know, my family, my kids, my wife, all of this stuff. I had built up strings to it, attachments to it, and it was, you know, accepting that stuff as looking, you know, as I'd started to view all of that stuff as just part of me, and therefore, you know, not necessarily appreciate the value of it all. And so I was put in a situation where all of it was taken away. And I experienced the grief of losing my family, losing my wife, losing, you know, everything that I'd understood, and was kind of like ended up in the cosmos kind of alone, and realized that, whoa, this is how it ends, right? This is how you die. Like everything gets taken from you. Everything gets taken from you. And so at the moment of death, whatever happens, like you're in a position where it's inevitable. It's happening. There's no turning back. There's nothing you can do. It's all going to be taken away from you. Every one of us dies alone. You know, and so it's in that, like, how do you dance with death if you don't understand that that is as much a part of life as being alive? And you know, it reminds me of I remember, like, I think it was in some of like the Native American traditions of, you know, like doing a dance, like the dance of death. You know, it's this idea that whenever like the moment of your death, like your life flashes before your eyes, like everything that happens, and you get to dance with that, or you get to resist it, right? And the value of learning that before you die is that for me, what I experienced was just a tremendous uplifting of like my appreciation for my own life, my appreciation for, you know, my family, the people in it, and really all people. Like it really sort of shattered my tendency, my sort of like normal tendency to not value the right things in life on a day-to-day basis, not value the time that you have with people, not value the simple experiences and exchanges that you have with people as you're going about your day, you know, no matter who they are, right? And so super profound, but in that letting go, man, that's such an important part of personal growth, is being able to let go. Big, huge picture stuff, and also just the day-to-day, like, you know, anger, right?
Somebody cut you off in traffic.
Somebody cut you off, man. Let it go before you flip them off, right? You know, because they may know jujitsu and not want to put up with being flipped off that day, right? So letting go pays off, right?
Not only that, you know, I've been a young, angry guy too. And the funny thing about flipping somebody off and doing that gesture to somebody, for me personally, I can't speak for others. Do you know how bad I would personally feel later? You know, like you simmer down and you're like, man, I can't believe I just flipped some dude off that I don't even know. And I feel bad about that. Like, man, what a shitty thing. Like, anytime people have done that to me now, you know, I have these moments of, I just smile.
Yeah.
My funny thing now is if somebody's behind me in my mirror and they're like, "Rah!" I just look in my mirror and go, "Ding!" You know, and I usually go like, hey, come on, like pass me. And you'll see that the reason I keep hitting my brake is because there's a car right in front of me hitting their brake. So, yeah, some people just they're angry and they have an issue, and I've been there. I've been angry. I've had issues. I still have issues. I've just learned to deal with them in different ways. So it's the whole forgiveness in the moment thing we've talked about before, and being non-judgmental and realizing that's their damage or that's their trip, and they're going to get over it at some point, or they're not. And but as you were talking about death and, you know, the dissolution of the body and what that does for you, when you visualize that and you see that, man, this has been it's been a tough week, a tough year for me emotionally, you know, moving from Costa Rica and kind of watching a life that you've built over a decade kind of be put to rest in a way, and leaving a bunch of friends and community that you've built over a decade was tough. And then maybe a couple months after I moved here, my grandmother passed away. And then, like I said, yesterday was my birthday, and my grandfather and I have had the same birthday for, you know, our whole lives, obviously. And he passed away last week, and that was my grandmother's husband. So both of my only two grandparents I've ever had my whole life just passed away in the last 5 months. And it's been a tough deal. Yesterday being my 43rd birthday. So for 42 years, I've been on the phone or in person with somebody who is like one of the most awesome men in my lives, and taught me, you know, to accept life and to challenge myself and to push through. And every time something challenging would happen to me and my mom would be crying, my granddad would say to my mom, "Jeff's going to be okay. I don't know why I know. I just know. And it's because we shared this spiritual bond through, we're both Sagittarius. We both have a funny, happy outlook on life. And we shared this this date in time where we were both brought onto this earth. And it was weird yesterday, but it was also a great, it was a great kind of moment of realizing that everything is temporal, and to appreciate my children and my family, and to take those lessons. The best legacy that my grandfather left behind is me and his other grandchildren and his children, who go out in the world and try to do good, and they don't make them like him anymore. And so I want people to feel that way about me and my legacy one day.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a powerful way of living, living in reverse, if you will. Waking up one day and saying, okay, cool, well, let's pretend like today's the day and I'm getting put into the ground. What's it going to be like? What's going to be the scenario? What do I want to leave as a legacy? And so kind of living in reverse. And I think that part of the awakening process is realizing that you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time to waste on being angry or, being petty or, getting caught up in other people's struggles, and I think that's one of the most frustrating things about the, what I like to call, and so many people call, the matrix, this sort of control matrix, this system of, the TSA jerk-offs, feeling up your wife at the airport with their stupid blue gloves on, the whole just like, tax the snot out of people coming and going, put a regulation fee on freaking everything. I tried to, my dad came to visit. I wanted to take him fishing, but he'd have to buy like a $50, $60 fishing license to go fishing for 2 days. I mean, stuff like that. It's just insanity. Mm-hmm. And so like you sort of go through life and you have all of this, matrix bearing down on you. But when you have that awakening and you have that realization that, okay, cool, still within this less than perfect, to be nice, structure, you still have the opportunity to cultivate love and friendship and relationships. But you have to value that time. You have to value that those moments that you have, and you have to, not squander them and piss them away on being petty or, like falling into those low vibrational codes, Interesting times we live in, though, man. There's so many things pulling. I think there's so many things pulling people back. They're sucking people back down the rabbit hole, pulling people back into that which script should I follow? Which is the most tantalizingly scandalous script I can pay attention to, and all of that stuff, man. It's just sucking your energy away from, where you shine your own light. Like Jeff, if you're a flashlight, right? If your focus is, if you're think of yourself as like a flashlight, and your focus is, is very specific and finite. Like where are you putting your focus on? Who's getting your light? Who's receiving? Where's your focus on these days, man?
And it's a great analogy too, because when you cast your light into the darkness engulfs the light, right? So whatever direction you're focused on, the darkness is in the opposite direction and all around it. And that's it's a great analogy for life. You can point your light at things that you should be focused on, like your family, your personal life, or you can point your focus at a bunch of reality stars and politicians and Weinsteins of the world and all this crap that the guy didn't he didn't do it to you. And you don't have to feel bad about watching a Miramax movie in your past because he was the mogul of Miramax or whatever, man. Like, who cares? I feel bad for the people that are victims of his evil, but at the same time, I don't need to give him my energy by thinking about the things he did to others. He didn't do it to me. I've got plenty of things to do in my own life, and I can use it as an example to my children of like, look, man, this is horrific treatment of women, and this is not how you operate in the world, and move on and use it as a teaching tool and not something to become distracted by and let it eat your time, the precious time, the little bit of time that you have with your family and in your life. And the biggest lesson I've learned from watching and dealing with my grandparents pass away this year is to not take things personally when my kids say something rude or they're struggling to try to find their way in the world and they pop off and say something to you. It's been a great lesson to realize, hey man, they're just trying to grow and they're trying to write their story too. And I can help guide them and maybe do a little proofreading and editing along the way, but they have to write their story. And I can't take it personally if they don't write one that's exactly like the one that I'd like to write for them.
Yeah, like writing your own story is that's really what's happening here. I was hanging with a good friend of mine, this older fella. He's like a shaman, works with the plant medicine of Boga, and really wise individual. Man, I love him, like a wisdom elder. And one of the other guys we were with had been talking about Game of Thrones. I think a bunch of people were talking about Game of Thrones and how awesome it was and this and that. And
I never watched it.
And like how it was coming on this time and that time. And so one time I was hanging with my friend and I was like, man, I've never seen Game of Thrones, buddy. Like, what about you? And he's like, yeah, I've watched it. I was like, what do you think? What's it all about? He looks at me and he made it so simple. He's like, it's just struggle. You're just watching other people struggle. Right. It was so clear to me at the moment, like what he meant is like, why would you want to invite struggle into your life, especially, as a form of entertainment? Yeah, I get it. I understand it. Like entertainment's entertainment, but still, like to fill your consciousness up with struggle all the time. I mean, surely that seeps in and then vibrates out to everything else that you're going. It seeps in and helps to shape your story, right? Struggle is a part of life. Struggle is something that has to happen. Struggle is just the way that it is, Is it? Or can life be effortless and can you flow without struggle?
Well, I mean, you can flow, but I mean, let's be honest. Struggle is. We were just talking about it earlier. It's in the times of struggle. It's in the times of strain. It's in the times of the dark night of the soul and the stress that you extract the juice, baby. That's where you get the good stuff from. I've said it before. You got to squeeze the oranges to get the orange juice, and it's true. But it's if you decide to take that struggle, pack it in a bag of shit, put it over your shoulder, and carry that stinking crap around with you all day. Like that's the difference. Is put the struggle down. Right. Find solutions. There's a reason they invented a wheelbarrow, because hauling one rock at a time was stupid. So you can haul 10 rocks at a time. And yeah, it's hard, but you have a tool now and a device that can help you get and that's what I feel like we're trying to do here with this podcast is we're trying to give people tools, right, to put in their toolkit to make the struggle easier and to lessen the struggle. And then all of a sudden you can get in flow. And, I'm not going to lie to people. I'm not going to tell you I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, man, how old am I again? My back is weird today. I slept, my neck's kind of stiff. I mean, dude, these things happen. But are you going to let a stiff neck keep you from doing your podcast that day or doing your life? And nobody has it out for you. God didn't send you down. Oh, I'm going to give Jeff an awful backache today. No, man, these things just happen and you got to push through life and do your best. And then you build fortitude, you build confidence, you build esteem, all the things that unfortunately a lot of people are lacking in our day and age and look for them in, pharmaceutical form a lot of times. So I don't think you can eliminate the struggle, but you can lessen the struggle. And then all of a sudden it just becomes like we were talking about earlier. I was saying earlier, it just is. It's not something that's good or bad. It's just another challenge that's put in your way. And how are you going to handle that?
Yeah. And I think that's like with, it's a good metaphor. If you're jiving on entertainment, like if that's what you do to sit down and watch to entertainment, I mean, it's just so easy to flip that thing off and go do something, less, do something more effortless, right?
Or pick something better. Pick something better, man. My wife and I love comedy. Like go watch. Something that's going to make you laugh.
Yeah, I'm not like preaching on people what to watch and stuff. Just making the note that like, struggle doesn't necessarily, in whatever form it takes, doesn't necessarily give you the results you think it's going to give you, right? Back to politics. Like if you get in politics, if you go and you participate, you go sign up and you're like, start canvassing and delegating or whatever, you know, join like political parties as interns or whatever. You can do all this stuff. What you realize is that it's a big struggle. Like, it is a energy sucking struggle, you know, and the ones that, let me just back up. It's an energy sucking struggle, and you really have to respect the fact that your life is only so finite. And maybe that's your destiny. Maybe that's your calling, is to struggle in the political arena and toil in there forever and ever and make your impact and get your name on the TV as a child molesting rapist, senator. I mean, maybe that's maybe that's where you're supposed to be. Dirty, but I mean, those guys there's a lot of that going on, you know, and that's something that doesn't get
dirty. A lot of them are dirty. I'm not saying all, but yeah, a lot of them are dirty.
No, man, it's funny watching all this stuff play out because, you know, like some people are informed enough to understand that this goes way deeper and it's way worse and way more evil than what's happening, to Matt Lauer or Charlie Rose or Weinstein or any of these other douchebags. You know, and so it's kind of interesting watching all this play out because you kind of got to wonder, is this going to actually, is there a chance now for some of this to bubble up? Like, you know, for some of our really, really dark shit to come out into the light, you know, because it's not just the politicians or just the guys in the evil cabal doing all this stuff. I mean, if you go look at what's happening in your own community, like, I mean, like teenagers and young guys are like kidnapping young girls and teenagers and shacking them up in hotels and prostituting them out against their will. I mean, this stuff is happening in every major city in the United States right now, everywhere. So it's like, it's a cultural thing that's going on here. Something is festering inside, you know, that perhaps is finally going to come bubble to the surface. Maybe there's going to be some way of reckoning with all of this.
Right. You know? I feel like it's weird saying good, but the good part of this is showing people it doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter if you're Weinstein and you're worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It doesn't matter if you're Matt Lauer making 20 or 30 or whatever million. You're going to get found out, man. And a piece of shit's a piece of shit. It doesn't matter if it's, there's garbage people in every class of society. And there's awesome people in every, like the homeless people that are the most amazing people that'll do anything to help people out. I mean, not everybody is in a situation of need because they're worthless or they're a shitbag. It's just not how it is. It's situational. It's a lot of times uncontrollable. But the thing that I think is the positive thing is showing people, hey, you don't have license to do this kind of crap just because you make a bunch of money or you have this exalted ego and you think that you're all powerful. You're going to go down. And that's the part of this thing that I feel like is positive and is a great message for people to kind of pick up on is, hey, man, it's no longer, 20 years ago, 30, 50 years ago, there was all this nepotism and all this stuff going on where people got away with this stuff, or bought their way out of it. And you're not going to buy your way out of it anymore,
Yeah, I know that a big part of my personal transformation has been seeing or taking a willful look at like the darkest parts of myself, like really diving into the mind and psyche and seeing what kind of evil lurks there. And so I'm a firm believer, it's part of my personal philosophy that you have to know what's going on in the dark. Like, you need to know, like, in order to live up to your potential and be the best person that you could be, you have to know what's down there. You need to know. And so take that out and expand that to the macrocosmic level with society, from outside, from the internal here to the external. It's really exciting to see all these revelations come out about these people. They've been doing this for forever. We've all known it. People have tried to report these things and nobody cares. Everybody wants to keep this stuff shuffled under the rug and keep it in the darkness. And it's just the layers go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's a good sign that, perhaps there's some kind of bigger shift happening, that we're ready to ready to look in at a little bit more of this darkness. But man, it goes so much deeper than just what's happening in these perverts' office, man. I mean, like the way that the environment is treated, the raping of the planet Earth. I mean, it goes so much deeper than just what's happening from, on an intrapersonal level between powerful people. I mean, the destruction of civilizations like Libya and Iraq and Syria and stuff. These things are so massive and so dark and so demonic that yeah, it's good, seeing some of this stuff get exposed, some of the mainstream, if you will, become aware of this. But like the human race isn't going to get anywhere until like all of this stuff comes out, and who knows what that'll look like, man. But who knows if we'll make it that long. But
it's kind of funny because it goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about this entire show. Is the struggle has to come out, and there's been people struggling to get their story out and struggling to show people that these leaders, these power moguls aren't what you think they are. They're really, and I'm not trying to whitewash or glaze over and say everyone's like that. That's not what I'm doing at all. But I'm just trying to say, man, there's a whole lot of it coming out right now. And I realize there's a whole lot more that are good people and that are doing good things in the community. But the ones that need to be exposed are being exposed. And yeah, sometimes it's a struggle to hear this stuff. And it's hard to watch women crying and men crying about the things that they've had to go through and that they've been through. But at least there's some exposure now, and hopefully justice will be served and people will shift, and our culture and our society will realize that we can't continue down the path that we've been on, or it's just utter. You want to talk about struggle and devastation? I mean, that's the path that we've been on for way too long, and I think that's something that you and I are more. Our awareness is more acute to, because we lived in Costa Rica for so long, and we saw real struggle of people in real poverty, and we saw beauty on a level that a lot of people in the United States don't see as far as natural beauty, and then we saw the devastation too. I know where I live, man. Talk about cutting down the rainforest and destroying primary forests and stuff so you could raise cattle to sell to McDonald's. I mean, this stuff's going on down there, and people don't realize that a lot of the beef and the industry that there is commercialized in the United States is being grown and raised in rainforests, in Central America and South America. It's easy not to look at it, but you have to look at it, and it's hard at first, but man, that's part of your growth, Yeah,
I've spent time in Ecuador, in the Amazon basin, northeastern Ecuador parts, and I mean, you really feel it there. The contrast between just raw, sheer, indescribable beauty in life with like industry, the pipeline mentality, the industrial capacity of human beings. Whew, man, it's profound. It's heavy, man. It really weighs on your psyche when you go to a place like that, and you can see the contrast so stark as it is. So yeah, go out into the Amazon and walk through some primary forest into a cow pasture, right?
It's a trip, dude. Yeah. I mean, we did that in Costa Rica. You're ripping through the jungle, like, checking out waterfalls, and then it's this dense forest, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa. Why there's not a single tree here that's full of cow patties and Brahmin cattle, and wow, this is a trip. This used to be this right here used to look like that right there. And but at the same time, I want to say something. The neatest thing is sometimes you would go on these farms, right, that were where they were reconstituting the rainforest, and you see these massive trees and these awesome watersheds and all this amazing wildlife. And then the person's telling you, this is not primary forest. This is all regrowth from somebody bought this cattle farm and just started planting trees and stuff. And you see this amazing resilience of nature. It's really something to behold. But then when you go into the primary forest and you really see some real primary trees, you realize, oh wow, this is like the vibe of it, the spirit of it, literally the spirit of it. It's completely different. And but at the same time, it's amazing to see the rebirth and the cycles of life, all the things we kind of been talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, nature is so resilient. So it's so forgiving, right? there's it's a really cool documentary. It's called Greening the Desert, I think. It talks about how they've been able to take parts of like Israel and, you know, the Middle East in that area. I think like northern Africa and what was like sand and nothing else, like been able to, with, you know, using like permaculture techniques and a little bit of science, but able to turn these dry, you know, like just seemingly dead spaces into incredibly vibrant live forests. I mean, so much of what I saw in Costa Rica too, the people who actually care for the land in the secondary forest, it's incredible how quickly life comes back, you know? And so once again, that's like the macrocosmic example of what people go through, right? Like when individuals go through, when they're going through, like you said, like the dark nights of the soul and those periods of depression, anxiety, and self-doubt and all that garbage. You know, like it takes a little bit of cultivation, but the little bit of cultivation can yield like phenomenally surprising results in such a short time. You know, in terms of, you know, being happy again, you know, loving life again, finding value in things, and you know, being able to find your purpose and pursue it. You know, so that's a pretty good message, you know, to wrap up for the day. What do you think, Jeff?
I really enjoyed this conversation. It's a good show. It was it's nice to dip into that, you know, and like you said, in the darkness is you'll find your light. It's so funny, and the balance of dark and light is what, to me, self-actualization is. It's when you can balance your shadow with your light and not allow the shadow to drag you too far down, and then also not to allow your happy light to drag you too far, you know, the super highs and then the super low lows, just to ride the river, you know. And sometimes you're at the top of the river and sometimes you're in the middle of the river, and, you know, there's all different levels in the river, but you definitely don't want to be scraping the bottom and bumping your face on all those boulders and stuff, you know. True,
but you got to know what's down there. You got to know you got to know what lurks beneath the surface, man. So
that's where you get the langostina.
Hey, man, good talking to you, Jeff. This has been Redesigning Reality. Dylan Charles. Follow some of my work at wakingtimes.com. And I'm out. Jeff, take us home, buddy.
Yeah, you can find me at journeytoinnersage.com. And we've also recently started our Instagram and Facebook for Redesigning Reality. So just look us up on Instagram, Facebook, and, of course, on our YouTube channel.
Cool. Peace out.
Later.
You've been listening to Redesigning Reality with Jeff Anthony and Dylan Charles.
Tukabona mokabuki.